My Family Thinks I'm Crazy, a podcast where I, your host, try to give you some tips on how you can explain all this weird, wild, crazy conspiracy stuff to the people you love most. Because that's what I've been trying to do for the past 10 years with no success.
I've been telling everybody that our government is shady, but every time I do, my family thinks I'm crazy. The hollow earth, UFOs, aliens invading, fluoride in the water, they spray our skies daily. When I talk about these things, they think I'm crazy. There's no escaping anymore the evil that we're facing. Illuminati mind control, they're sacrificing babies. The end of days, but anyways, my family thinks I'm crazy.
What, they don't want to listen to you?
No, they don't want to listen. They don't want to hear it. They're just like, oh, here we go, Mark. Off again with your...
Mark being Mark again.
Yeah. So, that's the thing about podcasts is when you're on the air, and it's like therapy, If I can't talk to my family about this stuff, I'll talk to you, Matt, and all our listeners.
You'll just tell your whole podcast.
Yeah. So who are we talking about today, Matt?
They think that I'm crazy. They really think that I'm crazy. They really think that I'm crazy. My family thinks that I'm crazy.
In a world of podcast player haters, paranoid finger pointers, and straight up misguided fools, it's important to relax, chill out, and allow your mind to wander as you ponder the endless possibilities that await you in our multispectral, abundant, ever-expanding now. And that is all the easier with friends by your side. So listeners, sit back and strap in for another wild ride with returning champion, Nathan Lee Miller Foster. The Great Awakening is upon us, so let's smash the fallen angel Egregore and replace it with a new gnosis and the wherewithal to keep our word and our promises to be loving, kind, abundant human beings in a better world. I'm Mystic Mark, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast with Nathan Lee Miller Foster.
Satan, NASA, whatever they're called, Nazi, whatever they're called, just about the deepest picture of space. I'm like, what, you couldn't zoom in like 1 millimeter further? Once you start to think like a little bit, and also if you look at that you look at the doodle, doodle, I don't think it works for that one. But when you look at that, it's like, just turn it upside down because we're living in Wonderland world and you'll see what that is. It's pretty much the same tank that they put like Olivia or 11 in. And 7 and 11 are both not even though the word even is in both of them. Anywho, so let's go here. And by the way, 7 plus 11, which is the 2, is a 9. Okay, enough. So Mark Stavish, Martin Armstrong, John Rappaport, Gigiyoung on Van von Braun, and Elon that guy, the cloning guy, and a dark journalist on UFO/Atlantis. That's what what I would encourage people to look up. As well as the final 2 is just my man, our man, everyone's favorite Gnostic, Miguel Connor. And I was saying in connection to my personal path of becoming more interested in esoteric/Gnostic theosophical Christianity, which after listening to Craig Williams, I'm like, I need to slow my roll because totally still beginning. And then I wanted to mention Rudolf Steiner on the knowledge of higher worlds and entertainment. There's so many literary allusions that Keenan uses. I believe that he's familiar with that book, as well as that book about Huey Long, who was a politician that was a Democratic version of Donald Trump, who was a Democrat for most of his life anyways. And there was between the Diape and the Death Shroud, which is why no amount of stench could cover up because he's not talking about any particular person, he's talking about the political structure. But if I'm getting if people are like, what the fuck's going on now, don't worry.
People know that they can go to Bandcamp and check out all your music. The link is in the description for this episode and the previous episode we've done. Returning champion Nathan Lee Miller Foster. I had to have him back on the show because the rave reviews from my Patreon audience, they were like, get this guy back on. And then we put the episode out yesterday. I wanted to put it out before we had you back on to tell you. And I knew this would happen, but we had people saying, love Nathan Lee, and other people said, damn, this guy talks at 1.5 speed, and other people are saying, I gotta, slow this down and catch up with it, because Nathan Lee, you got a lot of information stored away in there, brother. And I felt like maybe it would require a part 2 to go even further into all the cool stuff that we discussed the first time and whatever else has come up since, because you and I have been staying in touch and have been building on a couple of the ideas that we've put forth. But before we get into all that, how have you been?
I want to make sure.
No, you know.
Don't speak too fast.
Oh no, don't. Hey, this was not criticism from the audience. This was a complimentary. They were impressed with how fast you're able to, flip through all these different, not only facts and figures, but stories, connections, numbers, symbols. So give yourself a little credit there, brother.
Oh, don't worry about my Leo moon. It'll. I'm learning. Here's how I've been, Mark. And thank you very much for having me back on. And let me just start by setting the intention that thank you very much for this opportunity. May I only convey that which is serving the Most High and the most useful for everyone who listens at this point in their journey. That true intention being set, I'm realizing just how ignorant I really am, how beginning on the path it seems to feel sometimes that I am when I experience the masters or the teachers who have come before me, when I realize the shortcomings in my own personality and behavior, when I realize what I feel like is going to be a falling away of certain energies from my life for the replacement of more refined ones. I was recently told that an initiate does not get upset when a non-initiate, they don't get disturbed by the behavior of a non-initiate, which was a really big, like a very illuminating moment. I believe it was a discussion between Mark Stavish, my teacher, Mark Stavish, another Mark with an S somewhere in that name, and Craig Williams. And I call him a Gnostic badass, but I know he's into Ayurvedic medicine. I know he's very well practiced in Tantrika and other mystical arts. So listening to two, what I would consider gentlemen that are further along the path, and just my own resources that seem so abundant to some, and they are to a degree, and the key word being the degree, I'm realizing how important it is for me to convey at the start here that please take what I say with entire pillars of salt. This is someone who may appear, and see, I get the feeling that this shows my earnestness, but this is someone who may appear pretty advanced, but I am very much at the start of my path, and I am very grateful for my teacher, Mark, and for guides who come into my life like William Hodson and Craig Williams. So I want to put some, so to speak, on those names, or however, but those are different topics that are really moving me in the direction that I need to be moved in. And if I'm doing anything worth my salt, I'm going to be making sure that people have that impression that I'm no guru. I'm no one more than what I am where I'm at. And it's good for me to put that Capricorn brakes, so to speak, on the whole, forward rushing doom train, if you will, which obviously it's a Final Fantasy VIII reference. So which is what a cult fan gets you in Final Fantasy VIII, to end that screed on a slightly more nerdy, lighter note. But that's very important, and I want to put blessings towards Mark Stavish, especially my teacher. That is a very important thing for me to do for my own personal dignity on this path of initiation.
And you deserve that dignity. You have a very high integrity, and I appreciate you bringing that to the show. And I try to do the same thing when I go on other shows. You actually sat in on my appearance on Aeon Byte, and I said something very similar, like, hey, don't take my word for this stuff. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants like Anthony Sutton and Chris Milligan with this Skull and Bones research. So, yeah, I appreciate your disclaimer, but I also want to compliment you again and say that podcasting with you, and I've had 2 podcasts so far. Only one has been released, and this is our 3rd. Feels like ceremony. Actually 5, because we've done Miguel Connor's show. So 4, right? 4 or 5? I don't remember. Either way, too many to count. And it's like a ceremony. You know, we don't know what's going to happen. I get some smoke going in the air. You get some smoke going in the air. I don't know if you have any bud today, but one thing that we talked about recently over text was how Mark Stavish was he was absent at a meeting that he was supposed to be at, that I was at, that Michael Wan was at, whose shirt I'm wearing right now. And Michael Wan invited me there to go along with him so that he wouldn't get hoodwinked, right? I told you this, and I think you said you had more to respond, and you'd rather respond on the pod. So here we are. But me and Mike and our friend Jesse and my lovely girlfriend Tara, we all went down to Media, Pennsylvania. Strange name for a town, Media, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Well, Media, Pennsylvania is where a group of citizens broke into the FBI building, and this was the first time that citizens ever got a hold of the MK Ultra documentation. So in Media, Pennsylvania is where the case was cracked open on MK Ultra, and there. Yeah. And so we found that out synchronistically, a couple days before we got to Media. And like I said, one of the people that were supposed to be at this Freemasonic meeting that Michael was invited to present at as a non-Freemason was Mark Stavish. And I was a little bit concerned going there because Mike was nervous about it. So seeing as Mike was my, like mentor in this world, so to speak, I'm like nervous for him. Like, oh God, he's going to get his head chopped off at the end of this meeting or something.
We're Catholics, goddammit. No,
and it ended up being a really fun time. And everybody there was pretty, amicable to Mike's message, and they liked the fact that he was honest about being paranoid. It caused a big laugh in the room when Mike admitted that he was nervous that he was going to get set up or something by giving this presentation. But I found it curious that Mark Stavish wasn't there and was supposed to be there because it was their first Mason meeting since COVID. So this was at the beginning of this year, 2022, as we speak. So they hadn't met for 2 years. And on their first meeting, they're like, let's get Michael Wan, the Susquehanna alchemist, to give us a presentation. And
super interesting.
Yeah, and Stavish, being a Pennsylvania guy, I think, or Maryland, showed up or was, shows up to this meeting regularly, but didn't show up to this one. So I don't know what that says about Stavish and me, but it's strange in a sort of serendipitous way that now you and I have created these podcast conversations, because I'm sort of like a mentee of Michael Wan, and you just told me you're a mentee of Mark Stavish.
I'm a student of his for sure.
Right. Student is what I meant to say. I don't think mentee is even a word, but
I think that's the things that like swim with the dolphins.
Yeah, manatees. But either way, so we talked a little bit about Mark Stavish's work, and I think groups like the Freemasons and even groups like a podcast audience, my audience, your audience, Aeon Bytes audience, become almost like an egregore, right?
Oh, there's a lot to respond to in that.
Go ahead. Take your time. Whichever you'd like to respond to first.
Musa. The first thing I want is this coffee.
Yes, we should say we're both fueling and nourishing ourselves with our own choices. Last time we conversed, we had coffee and cannabis. This time I have tea and cannabis, iced tea.
Honest tea. I love that.
It's too hot to be drinking coffee for me right now, so I got to go with my honest tea.
Well, I was a kid. Well, I just had some honest tea for sure. I love how they put Opus from Opus and Build a Cat or Build a House Cat on there. But yeah, they did a great story called about the Basalope, by the way. Now, if I talk over here, is my sound coming through just as well when I'm over here as over there? My mic's right over there.
Yeah, it's not as well. If your mic could be like more centered, that'd be helpful. But if
I
not,
have this keyboard
Well, either way, be comfortable. What's more important is that you're comfortable, Nathan Lee, because I can always edit and normalize the audio to make you sound a little louder or a little quieter.
This is good, right?
That's excellent. Yes.
Yeah, it's that's the mic range it's supposed to be. All right, so enough of that stuff. Just kind of threw myself off.
Egregores.
Well, let's bring it back to the idea of how fear is contagious, right? Because I figured out with the little Rona, like if you want, however deep you want me to go into this, but I'm glad. I just want to make it clear. I'm about the actual spiritual experience and the information shared. So I don't care on whose show it's on as long as it's the truth. Like that's really how I feel.
Oh yeah.
And
no doubt.
The idea being that I figured out what the Rona symbol was when I was watching this show called 0 Hour, which is basically Nazis versus Rosicrucians. It's really interesting. And we just had the guide stones with the Roman Catholic. That's the big reveal for what the RC is, because we don't bury the leads around here. And the time capsule itself, I'm just jumping straight into it, and we'll get back to Stavish.
Yeah.
What this was a sigil-based operation. These were Roman Catholic eugenicists, and you can see in the movie, the documentary Dark Clouds over Elberton, which I found out about both from my friend Steven, aka Recluse, and from Martin Armstrong, he's another, if you want to use mentor, we can use that. I have one teacher, which is Mark Stavish, and then I have a bunch of guides and mentors, is how I look at it, just from my perspective. When you look at that, it was basically a sigil charged operation. Actually, I found out from Mark, the Skull and Bones has some cool like Templar associations too, which is super dope. But different egregores, different groups can use the same, like no one owns the circle. So some people like to think they do. But here's the deal. When you launch a sigil, you build up an intention and then you use a lot of orgone, or whatever types of energy. So this was a long sigil that they were launching, and they launched it. Kaboom. And so when they say time capsule, that wasn't a time capsule, except in the sense of that this was the day, just like the towers were built to be brought down on a certain day. So I hope that's some good information off the top. Now, again, that's just the way I see it. It doesn't mean that it's what is, but goddamn, if I'm not right, what? Anywho, the point is that Mark, the Freemasons are an organization that return you. It's like I always think of that. Forgive me, Father, for I'm about to sin. It reminds me of that song "Return to Innocence" by Enya. But Freemasonry, in what it really does, is returns you to that broken. Like a lot of the evil loves to destroy innocence. That's what evil's about. Like we're not talking about creative destruction and evil and good as a more initiatic understanding. There's that aspect too, but there is an aspect of the Cthulhu type, the real old evil, if that is a thing, which I'm drawing from the conversation with Mark Stavish and William Hodson, an ex-Catholic priest who knew the inner workings of the Vatican, who knew about the real like wounds that people get, the actual like there's real crazy stuff that happens. And he was talking about with Mark about this real evil, and they were talking about how evil wants to corrupt innocence. So one thing that Freemasonry is good for when it's being Freemasonry is to return one to those guiding principles that you would have if you were an innocent man, which is essential if you're especially talking about living your fullest free existence. No one would ever, in a real Freemasonic context, and forgive me if I am speaking, but I think this is truthful enough, no one's going to take anyone against their will that would be harmful to everything involved. That's just not, to speak as a Mason, that's not our way. Please remember the word free in there. And that's an important aspect. So people can build up these concepts in their heads. Now let's bring it back to I figured out with the little Rona bubble. We'll call it the Rona bubble. In Zelda, they have enemies that are called bubbles, and they're little ghosty things. And it's actually I found this out from watching a DNA model being moved about on a screen when they were doing cloning, like Elon Musk, cough, cough, cough. See latest, no agenda. And basically you can see from the bottom that the spiral staircase, the Jacob's ladder of the DNA, is actually the Rona bubble. So they're literally like showing you your DNA, and that's like such a joke to me. Like that's the dark rub. And so just to finish the thought, I guess, no one would ever do that, but fear is contagious. In fact, I'm just going to throw some stuff. I'm just coming hot and heavy, hopefully speaking at a proper cadence and tempo and tone. Hey, baby. Hey. The idea is that I just threw myself off a little bit. It's my dulcet tones, but let me bring it back. The idea being
the Rona Jacob's ladder.
Fear is contagious. Fear is contagious. We truly have nothing to fear but fear itself. So what we went through was getting people to be afraid of viruses. But viruses, what if viruses don't actually, let viruses explain it all. What if viruses don't actually, speaking of ladders going, see, it's tied that together nicely because Sam would go into her window through the ladder, which let's not talk about that. But anyways, the idea is that fear being contagious, and especially when someone you respect or is like you hold above you in the path, so to speak, is afraid, like that's detrimental. And the fish rotting from the head down, and no dishonor or disrespect, just an example archetypally. But that is to say that everything that we went in the past 2 years was giant fear inoculum land, and we should get into more of that, and the Legion inoculant and the litany against fear, contra una la peur, whatever, and even mocking beat and how that relates to, I would, if you don't mind writing this down for our notes, just a mocking beat and how that relates to the Lee Harvey Oswald level patsy that is Ted K. Yeah, we're going, why don't we just do all the things today? So I want to say to finish the rant, one of the things I'm being made aware of is that I am definitely more beginning on the path than I had thought. And I am certainly always in control, or I am always responsible and being in control of my own perceptions, my own emotions, and the energies that I put into this world. And that is the greatest gift. That is the greatest initiation that I am aware of at this time, to be in a full awareness and charge being electromagnetic and everything term of your own way, your aura, your warp and woof in this world. And so that's why it's so important to be exposed to these, and I'll get into this actually, if you will allow me just one more quick paragraph. This is, I would recommend to the listener, On Personal Dignity and Initiation, parts 1 through 3 by Mark Stavish. I will provide Mark with all of the notes for that, but here's 5. While there are no hard and fast rules that we can give, there are some guidelines that can help, and this is for initiation and what an initiated person actually looks like, because it's the ye shall know them by their fruits for sure, and shogis. And it says if one's uncertain of their application because of time and place or cultural setting, these guidelines can be summed up in the following. And by the way, if you do follow through reading these, you're going to love the first paragraph where it talks about who definitely would not be given initiation, because that's dope. But pardon my vernacular. The person of dignity treats others, even enemies, with respect because they know, and that's 1. Number 2 is because they know the power of the word. They are not crude or vulgar. So like I said, I'm at the beginning of my path. 3, they also know the importance of silence. 4, they do not meddle in the affairs of others or offer unsolicited advice. 5, they are generous when the opportunity arises, as personal generosity is expressive of their unending confidence in their own personal mastery. So with that, I will yield the floor to the other senator.
Thank you. Yes, and Mr. Stavish, like I said, has some very interesting work. We have touched on that before, but I took a couple of notes here, Nathan Lee, and I'm wondering where we should start first, because we're just getting into this. We're 20 minutes in already, and we've already laid out. The reason I do want to point this out, the reason I conceptualize that septagram is because when we talk about certain topics, they seem to connect, right? And it's like we end up at one topic and it has 2 branches that, could lead us either this way or this way. And that point can bring us, to another point on the chart. So we may not use that septagram completely this episode, but I at least hope to make one from the things you've brought and let the listeners see it. Cause I don't know.
This quickly, just for people who can see that obviously I am very attached to my name being said properly, like Nathan Lee. Whereas if I were more advanced in my path, I may just not care about such a thing, which I openly acknowledge, for my own limitations. It's also very important to me as a magical operation, because the Lee of Nathan, which is cream of wheat. The Lee of Nathan. Talk about that juice earlier, huh? Anyways, the Lee is the protector. It's the holy. It's holy. It's protector, and it's very important for me to be putting that into because a gift is a gift, but like when you open it, like was it a gift? So when I'm putting the intention there, those that's 3 letters for a third syllable. It's nothing. You could just like mash it together. It probably is helpful for people to not even have a space in there, so they just 1, 2, 3, because like people have like Margaret, Elizabeth. Those names don't seem to bother people, but they're multisyllabic. But for me, it's important to acknowledge, yes, that is something that I still have an ego trip on, but it's also at another level something that's important for not only like my own ability to resonate that protective energy out there, but also it's kind of like a shit test. Pardon my crudeness and vulgarity because beginning of path, but no excuses. But basically, I can tell friend from foe. There was literally an incident recently where I was modding a chat room for a live show for one of our fellow, you could probably guess who. And there was some definite Legion activity in there. And one of them was literally like trying to, I'm not even kidding, the language they were using. And by the way, I am super sniped with blocking. Don't worry about that. If you step into our house, if you step into Mark's house rudely, you will be out the window before you know it, kind of. Totally, bro. So they're blocked and done, but they were like, give over to the dark side, basically, is what they were saying. I'm like, what direct level of insanity is this? So I quote Tool from Jambi and say, Legion, stay out of my way. It's like Tool saying, don't you dare point that at me. He's talking about the culling, which is brought both in the Tool song Culling Voices, as well as the new Porcupine Tree album, which is Culling Herds, I think is the song. So we're actually witnessing one of the topics of the 7 that I brought that I did send you, which is Martin Armstrong's article about this very powerful. Please ready yourself, listener. Take it as you will. No, really, it's not happy information in a degree, but it is how you internalize and respond to it in your own, which you are responsible for, which is 50% population decline by 2040, according to the model of Martin Armstrong, who, if you doubt that, then I doubt that you could use the name Nathan Lee. It's the same level of respect. I can either see if you're here or here. And, like I said, you don't let someone who's not past that's what I call it, a shit test. It's like, if they're not here, that doesn't bother me. And so but again, 50%, and that's like an interesting metaphor because like it's either here or here. And notice the artwork for Fear Inoculum literally showed the splitting of the waves, what Alex Gray called the Great Turn. Something about that has a sense of population deluge, like flood reduction to me. So we can maybe talk more about that. But one of the 7 I wanted to speak of was Martin Armstrong's Socrates AI prediction of a 50% reduction in the population by 2040. This is not a gleeful, this is not joyful, this is really a serious time to step into your initiatic, if you feel the call, to step into whatever calls to you and become more aware of who you are, what your breath is, the different aspects, how you have multiple versions of your mind, even in your own self. So who's really hungry? Who's really speaking? Who's really caring? That's a very big and important part of all of this. And I hope that I'm serving people by bringing that up in the same breath as the saying that there's times ahead where the earth is changing. So thank you for allowing me to say that. That was important for me to say.
No, and I'd like to know more because I think I have heard you explain this on the Occultist podcast that Nathaniel and Nathan Lee are very similar in the sense that you have this L, right? E-L, and L is a very significant phrase. Lee backwards is obviously L, or even eel, which is an electric being, one of the few living creatures that has like an electric pulse that is measurable with our devices.
It can kill a hoe.
Right. So I do have no umbrage. I've taken no umbrage with you correcting me because I think it is important and it is a part of the respect that any host should give their guests. So yes.
Well, just people in general, like your listeners, like if someone approaches me and says just Nathan, even it's really too impersonal to call me Nate. I got an email from someone the other day, but I have already, and I have gotten some really cool people from you who have responded as Nathan Lee, but it's like, if you call me the wrong thing, guess who you're not going to talk to?
Exactly.
No, I mean, So look at this is the 23rd, by the way, Vignetti E Trace. This is the 23rd angel that we're speaking in the time period of.
Okay.
So I actually drew that hand in the middle pretty well, but look at the name. It's Melahel.
Right.
E-L.
Right. And can you explain, because I've seen you pull those cards out several times. Can you explain maybe for folks who haven't heard us talk that first time what those cards are a part of?
Absolutely. I'm a practitioner of different esoteric rituals, and I've done certain things that include like the headless rite. I've taken part in different workings, basically related to Astaroth, which is like, if you look at where my birthday is in Bedknobs and Broomsticks by Disney, Astaroth's the big force in that film. The ritual that I'm speaking of now that Mark has asked me about is known as the 72 Angels of the Shemhem-Ephresh. And there's different workings for different traditions, but essentially one that I did involves a certain amount of prayers and a certain amount of relating to the angels in their period of time, showing respect and reverence and connection to them. I have drawn out on black, thick paper with a gold and silver pen the sigil or the seal of the angel, including the prayers that I've done at the time. So in order to align me with them, and to finish the idea, if you're wondering how do you tell a time for the angels, you basically, I'm gonna explain with it's, you take the decans. Now, what's the decans? Every 10 degrees in the zodiac. See, this is like layers of layers of layers. So in the zodiac signs of 12, you have 30 degrees, 00 to 29. The 29 has got a special name. So if you see anything at the 29th degree, it's known as the anaretic, not unlike the word analemma, because to give a, yeah, I'm not going to make, see, my initiation's working because I did not make a crude joke that time. Sorry, Joey. We'll have to save that for later. That's my shout out to my brother, Joey J.
Shout out Joey J.
Love Joey J. Love, love, love. And so the 10 degrees, obviously 30 by 10, right? Or 30 by 3 is 10. So 00 to 9 is the first decan, which when you flip that D, looks pecan. I love making that reference. It looks like pecan. So decan. And then when you split the decans into halves, so now you have 6 by 5 to make the 360 by 12. If you're following this, like the half a decan is an angel of the Shemhem-Ephresh.
Right.
So 00 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, and so on up. And so that's how you know the angels of each. So by the time you're into Cancer season, now we're actually in Cancer 3 as of last, I think like 5 a.m. yesterday or something. Now we're into Cancer 3, which is Angel 23. And then the second half of Cancer 3 is going to be the 24th angel before we go 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30 for Leo. And on it goes. To quote Peter Murphy, whose birthday it was the other day, which is one of the songs that I practice for my singing, which is Cuts You Up, which is an amazing song. And I heavily recommend people listen to Cuts You Up by Peter Murphy. And now I understand very intimately what your listeners who said that I speak too well.
No, and I'm following you, and this is good practice for me, because I hope we can keep having these conversations, because I'm learning so much, and I know you've explained that before, but I'm seeing it now. And to quote another song, the pie in the sky, right? You're slicing that pie in the sky up with these decans and then the various measurements, more minute measurements. And this is sort of like the turning of the celestial wheel. And
oh, it is.
I'm wondering, because I've heard this number 72 not only associated with angels, but tarot cards, and then also
78 for tarot, right?
And then with the 72 lesser spirits of King Solomon. Now, is that correlated at all? Is this sort of like a negative version of the angels? I mean, we don't want to put too much of a qualitative judgment on it, but where do the 72 lesser angels follow with this?
Those are the genie or the 72. It's not wrong to say, like, it's more like, I guess, like creative versus destructive, which is how I understand. Like, again, please, guys, like, and ladies, I'm at the beginning of my path. So pillar of salt, like I said, maybe some Tabasco sauce too. Oh, some A1 steak sauce. Anywho, take it with some A1 steak sauce, which is delicious. And I guess to answer directly, that's like the thing that I said that most people agree with so far. Yes, steak sauce. I'm like, okay, it's creative and destructive forces. And one must be able to wield both to be a magus, to speak in the way that I understand it. But then there is also, besides creative and destructive, there's evil out there, I think. I don't know, but William Hodson, and I'll be providing Mark with all of these links. The William Hodson interview, I cannot tell you guys like how awesome that is. I mean, like, part of my old programming, or maybe just what I'm going through, I've been reading my Bible every day, and no one expected that happening, but that's happening. Now this is happening, and it's an important book. It's if you read it as an initiate, it's your consciousness. The Bible is consciousness. There have been revisions of it and such, but to focus on the 72, yeah, it's like the night side of the tree, I think, is one way of saying it. But, it's basically the more frenetic and dark aspects of our personality, the shadow, which once you master it, there's a time and a place, a season for all things. And, just where I come from, I'm a huge fan of the battle epic in which Arjun, which has A at the end, but it's pronounced Arjun, I believe, is being counseled or advised. And then he's like, you have to kill. And one of the phrases that came to me was never murder, but if you must, kill. So that is something that might be hard for people to hear. But again, I'll throw out this meme that I found just the other day. I identify as a threat. My pronouns are fuck around and find out. That's obviously a tongue in cheek. That's from a guy named Nathan Jones, who is an Australian wrestler. I found out there was like a Supreme song called Nathan Jones. So I was kind of going down that because I still have the Nathan as part of my name, and there is a resonator, obviously there, resonate. Initiate and natal charts and such. And one of the important things I want to throw some musical upgrades to people on is Vic Chestnut. Vic Chestnut unfortunately committed the act, which is a major transgression, along with Mark Linkous, known as Sparkle Horse. But both of these gentlemen were featured on David Lynch's The Dark Night of the Soul, aptly. And the song that I wanted to point people to is a bonus track from his West of Rome. Sounds occult to me. West of Rome. And it's called Nathan, which I will be covering along with Tenacious D's Lee. So I will be covering, yes. So I'll have Nathan on the A side and Lee on the B side. I will have to get the rights to these eventually. But yes, Nathan and Lee by Vic Chestnut and Tenacious D. So shout out to those songs. But yes, that's a bit more information on that.
What was the act that Vic Chestnut committed that no one should?
You know what?
Like,
wow, we did that at the same damn time. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, gosh.
Yes, he 86'd himself, as they say.
Right. And he was a part of the Dark Night of the Soul. David Lynch put that together.
Yeah, he curated an album which featured Sparkle Horse, Viva Dixie Trombone, I think, or something like that. But yeah, both of those gentlemen ended their lives, which, as I've been taught so far, will make you come back and have to learn the lessons even more hard. And if people continue on that, eventually you spiral down into non-existence. As I mentioned last time, it's basically annihilation versus apotheosis. But again, beginning initiate here. So please take what.
Well, and I think, to maybe summarize our last conversation, we talked a lot about the concept of like White Lodge initiates versus Black Lodge initiates, right? And we have this concept of David Lynch possibly performing a theater of the mind, or a sort of mesmerism, a magic act through film and light and sound. And interestingly enough, an author whose book I've had for many, many years, his name is Antaro Ali. He wrote a book called A Modern Shaman's Guide to Reality Selection, titled Angel Tech. And I reached out to him. Naturally, I want to talk to him about this book. It delves into the 8-circuit model of consciousness that Timothy Leary put a lot of work out on. So I'm naturally interested in that. I want to interview him on that. And he says to me, well, sir, that was 40 years ago I wrote that book, so I'm not interested in interviewing about that book. He said, if you'd like to interview me, please check out my theater plays that I've been doing. So I go and watch some of these theaters, these, I don't know the right term for it, I guess show, production I started watching some of the videos that he has on Vimeo, and these are occult rituals, straight up occult rituals acted out on stage. And I'm not saying, you know, a qualitative judgment on Antaro Ali either way. As far as I'm concerned, that first book he put out was white magic. It helped me in an immensely powerful way. But when you look at the theater and the production and then how that's been evolved into movies and stage shows and big music acts, you could see that clearly these folks are initiated in a lot of the stuff that we're discussing here because they're pointing out in the symbols. And that's why, you know, when you and I are dashing through this stuff, you know, we have the pop cultural sort of references in mind because this is part of the conditioning that, and the weird thing about being an American is everybody, depending on where you live, gets a different flavor of cultural conditioning. It's all sort of the same archetype. Go ahead.
Just jump in with the flavor. No, just on the flavor thing, because The Lion King, Adam Curry told me this was an excellent observation, so people can take that for what they want. The Lion King prepared everyone for bugs, tastes like poop. It's the slimy yet satisfying, which also encourages deviancy. I mean, Hakuna Matata, two dudes played Nathan Lane.
No worries. Right. So one of the prayers I've been developing, because it's literally taking Mark Stavish's words and putting amen at the end of it, is work hard. No, this is John Rappaport who we need to get into as well. Work hard, earn it. Amen. That's a prayer. Work hard, earn it. Amen. That's work hard, earn it. Amen. That's a very important prayer. And you started by asking me about my feather that I use to not only block the glare, but also block the ugly microphone stand, you know, add some natural energy to this room. But feathers, I've always been told from my one and only mentor, Amos, that feathers carry your prayers up to the creator. So, you know, talking about prayers and mantra, it's definitely something that I think I was averse to growing up with the Roman Catholic programming. Prayer always felt like this routine, like, you know, really mundane thing that didn't yield any results. Well, it's because you're not the priest. The priest gets all of that. Right. And then as soon as I started, you know, smoking the grass, I realized that there's nothing between me and the creator other than the illusion that's been cast over my mind. Right. Deceiver chased away is how Tool sings of it. Which we would just do like a series breaking down each song basically on that. That really is one of the most powerful albums of our time. Just absolute bar none. And that's the other response we've gotten from a lot of the folks who tuned in to our previous conversation, which came out this week. They loved that we talked about Tool. I did not estimate how many people would be fans of Tool, and a lot of them were like, whoa, I never thought to listen to the album like this. It's just, you know, they were stoked. So I want to say thank you to everyone who's had that response, which is not a reaction, it's a response. You know, that's something, like, I barely have like involved myself with the Tool. Like, I haven't done fan bases too much, really. I have a lot going on. So you have to, like, if I didn't do what I did, I wouldn't have had the time to do what I do. When Alex Gray met me, he recognized me. Like, we had never met before, quote unquote, but he recognized me. Now, and you mentioned, sorry to cut you off, but you mentioned earlier Alex Gray talked about this great turn. Yeah. No, okay. Please remind me of that. I feel like I just yesterday was watching how they just released this awesome arcade machine. I finally have been kind of dabbling into the Tool Reddit, which is awesome. So what I had the realization just yesterday of was that I'm like, there are so many wonderful people here. Like, I feel like this real sense, like I've never before, like the consciousness on the community side is rising, and I am also preparing myself to be a better version so that I can serve truly. And I just was like, wow, I feel like I'm going to be someone who is recognized in this community as, like, I'm a cult fan. The guy, Nathan Lee, who does I'm recognized as the Holy Gift. And I just saw this arcade machine that was covered with Fear Inoculum art, and it plays games and like plays Tool songs, I guess. Like, I'm like, wow. And I feel like that might be like one of my roles in this lifetime
It came very clearly to me. Like, I'm like, I think this is
Well, and I think you're a wonderful bridge, because a lot of people recognize the symbolism at play with Tool, and they don't have the equipment in their mind to decipher it, because we've been left, like we discussed in our previous conversation, like sleeping Masons, right? We're all sort of pseudo initiated into this esoteric culture unaware. It's all in our subconscious. So these sort of ideas that Tool hints at are sort of laid in the fabric of who we are as maybe just Americans, or at least Westerners. And you know, when someone like yourself can come and say, hey, here's the code, here's how we've deciphered it, it's immensely powerful. It adds another layer, and it helps Tool, because Tool can't come out with their own code cracking.
They get so pissed off if you ask them questions about it.
Oh, I'm sure. And that's the magic of what they're doing. If they recognize it, then, or if they not recognize, I'm sure they recognize it, but if they acknowledge it, it almost sort of eliminates the true potency that's at play when it's available for someone like you to come along and decipher it, Nathan Lee.
It wouldn't be the same if they came out and said it needed to go through the process. I wasn't even the one. Again, shout out to Phil Real. I think it's Riehl. He was the one who originally discovered the holy gift ordering itself. I always, it's very important to me to give him credit, because again, it shows that it's a community. There are others out there. We are not alone. Make yourself the best version of yourself, not in a way that is false love and light, like not Luciferian and not Ahrimanic, but make yourself the best version of yourself, man or woman, or however it goes, and make sure that you are presenting that best version of yourself, because we're going to need one another. But I do feel like Tool, literally as a metaphysical impact, has provided us with these tools. I was going to joke and say, like, I'm basically the tool shed. I just have the tools collected in the tool shed. And I think it's important that people realize that, like, when we talk about who's going to be of that 50% that remain, I mean, pretty much everyone's going to be listening to Tool. It's a kind of a joke at that point when I say it like that, but I don't think I'm kidding that much. Like, that level of awareness will be ye who is wise as serpents, gentle as doves. And Tool's music appeals to that level of consciousness. And I think that's part of the warp and woof of it. You know, it's one of the best bands out there. And I've never really identified as a Tool fan, because I've seen the consciousness of where it used to be at. And it was very like opiate undertow. Like, but then I've seen it like slowly, especially from my perception around when Fear Inoculum was released. Then it kind of started to get to Anima, and then it rapidly spiraled to Lateralis Holy Gift level. And now it's like spiraling up to like Fear Inoculum level. And I just hope that I am doing my part to serve that process.
Well, and could that be like the alchemization, where they started with lead, they captured the essence of that grunge leftover that Kurt Cobain left in his wake, right? This CIA, drugged culture, right? I mean, that's what the music culture was. You're familiar with Dave McGowan.
They literally refer to Kurt. I've heard them refer to Cobain. I think Danny Carey said he was just some kind of like junkie or something. It's interesting that they use the same term for Johnny Depp.
Well, and maybe not just Kurt, but a lot of others that were prominent in that scene. I mean,
Lane Staley,
and unfortunately that kind of stuff we've learned was pushed on the artists from the people who were, it wasn't that these folks are just, because I think that's the misnomer that the youth picks up, is like, oh, the drugs make you talented. It's like, no, you're talented, and then these spooks come along and drug you because they're trying to sell drugs. Right. And we've definitely entertained that here before. We've had several different guests on who have battled with drug addiction and overcome it, and I think it's really powerful. Actually, there's a lot of podcasters who are sober individuals, and I'm not sober. I smoke plenty of cannabis, so probably haven't been sober for about 10 years, but I respect that journey, and I appreciate that people speak bravely from that position in this culture that's so overwhelmingly sedated,
That's true. And sobriety has its own egregore. Especially, I just ate some spicy pickles, so excuse me if my voice is going crazy. They're delicious. I love pickles. The book Infinite Jest by Dave. Oh wow, they're spicy.
Infinite Jest
by David Foster Wallace. It's about the addiction community, and about it's an allegory for it's part of his own life. It actually takes place in Boston, all across around here. That's a book that I feel like is connected to my story in a way. It's just like an amazing book. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you have read it, please smile wryly when you hear me talk about how I couldn't help it, but it smelled delicious. And talk about getting your mind blown. But that book was written using the Sierpinski diagram.
Okay.
Which is this, like infinite, like incursive or reflexive triangular motif, which moves you throughout the book. But I mean, that it's just one of the best books that I've ever read. It's just absolutely incredible. And of course, David Foster Wallace himself allegedly, most likely did end his own life as well, unfortunately. So that's the danger of genius and genies and djinn and not being in control of your own mental palace and your heart, especially your heart. The mind can be deceived. The heart cannot. So always use your heart. If I could offer one piece of advice that I am sure about, use your heart to make your decisions. Not being emotional, like that's a different thing. Using your heart to guide you. Your heart will never be deceived. Evil can only make you afraid. That's its ultimate trick. It can only try to corrupt your innocence so that you become afraid. That's the only way that evil can ever really do. You know, I remember Maynard James Keenan, James Keenan, talked about in a dream that he had that there was this iron spike coming towards him, like this wall of spikes. And he said, you know what, let's get this over with. And he charged like an Aries that he is right into it in the dream. But that's the kind of thing. You must be fearless. And that's why fear inoculum is the ultimate. Why do people take the thing? They were afraid that the 1-2 sucker punch. Why did they take it's the jab? Seriously, you're changing terminology. Hello, should be a insight right there. But it was because if you did that, you were afraid. And John Rappaport talks about, and I want people, and this will be in the notes too, the copious notes. John Rappaport, and I expect, like, seriously, before you communicate with me after this one, please do your due diligence. I have my own things going on. Please do your due diligence and read these articles, absorb this information. If you need to pay $6 to listen to this podcast by John, do it. You can cancel your Substack afterwards, but the idea is that he talks about what if viruses aren't even real? Okay, boom shakalaka, swallow that one. Oh, I'm serious.
I'm there. I mean, I'll tell you what.
I know. I'm talking to the audience. Like, this is. Yeah.
I'm with you. No, I've had this suspicion, and I've kept it close to my chest for a while because I hadn't had a reason to share it with anyone until 2019. And then I realized, saying this is just going to make my family think I'm crazy. So, mission accomplished.
No doubt. No, but it's important because, and it's hard. I had to listen to his podcast. He has a 2-parter. I had to listen to that like several times to kind of like rearrange the furniture, so to speak.
Well, I have experiences as a kid, just being dirty from being in the woods and feeling as healthy as I've ever felt. And it was when I became a video gamer for a short time in high school, and I stayed inside, and that was the only time in my youth that I was ever bedridden with an illness. Was around that same time that I decided, okay, I'm going to spend an absorbent amount of time at a video game, console. So yeah, that was the only time I ever got the flu. All right, which I got to break down maybe that's like them saying loser F you. Flew. I don't know. Flew over the cuckoo nest.
Well, or just in it and stayed there. But yeah, homie, I only got sick when I took that. That's the only time. I'm a very healthy individual. And that's why I will choose to repeat the lines, bless this immunity.
Right. And we have talked about this before, but some weird things have happened since. And there are also some loose ends that we didn't tie up from our last conversation. Okay. But you asked me to remind you about Alex Gray and the Great Turn.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Okay. Well, people can make themselves familiar with his most recent. By the way, this is like DM Turner is the name of that figure.
eventually, I think it got named after the album was released, if I remember correctly. And I don't mind hearing from respectful people who have the best intentions in mind, reaching out to me. Like, reach out to me with love in your hearts, because I am very sensitive. And if you want to communicate, if that's your aim, then, you know, be kind and no need to rewind. So basically, Alex Gray was at Justin Chancellor's birthday Tool concert on the 19th of November, which is like a 93, which is also the connection between Binat and Yasod. But that's a whole other thing. So basically, I was there, and Alex was literally like counterpoint to me, like where he was on stage was directly in front of where my seats were. So if you ever watch a video of the New York show from 2019, Alex Gray, where he's sitting, if you're gonna, that's me up in the stands, like, dude, it's Alex, what's up? I know that guy. He gave me a name. Holy shit. So basically, yeah, I know, right? That escalated quickly. The idea is that on that day, they were actually, I believe that was the show that they premiered that at, or there was something special about the light show that day where they had the character rotating like that. And that's called DM Turner. And that's just one aspect of the art. There's a downward spiraler guy and an upward spiraler guy version. One is connected. What differentiates them is one is connected in a hierophantic manner to the god, like Mark was talking about his own connection. The other guy's mind is blown. He's blown it from worrying. He literally cooked his own mind, so to speak. That character's known as DM Turner. And the way to set the artwork up, just for the, I still need to purchase the vinyls, and they actually just released, not like they did with the CD, a second version of the vinyl, because musicians got to make money, homie. Seriously, that's where you make your money, is on your merch, largely. That's where I learned from Porcupine Tree to actually no agenda. So I know what I'm basing when I go forward. And I will say this, the torch is held, which is a 7 too. The torch, the Promethean, the consciousness, the Jacob's ladder. He has the DNA with the consciousness, with the flame. And the flame is a whole other thing in Tantra and your Tantien. So basically that's pointing towards the upward spiraler. So the people who are upward spiraling in this, and I'm going to correct as I go, as I learn more, as I have more gnosis, but basically that's talking about how the people who keep the flame alive, because if the human spirit goes out, that's it, kaput, gone forever. No more. So we can't have that. And the people who are getting the if you want to remind me about the chemtrails or the chem spray and how that relates to prana and how that's dumbing us down from our spiritual connection as well, because the spirit is to respire, to breathe. Yeah, no wonder people are like, well, this guy, he can do the thing with the tool thing. I'm like, yes, that's why I'm here. That's one of the reasons. The holy gift is here. What up? But DM Turner has that, and that is the 7. That is also the number of the album with the 7 with Tempest and stuff like that. We'll get into that another time. But I just want to make it clear too, that a triangle is a 7, a 7, and a 7, like Lucky 7 Insurance in Twin Peaks 3. And that is the 777 is the L's as well. That is the love, light, and life. That is the holy trinity, so to speak, of the upward spiral, or just that's a holy trinity in a sense. So that 777 is the LLL, is the love, light, and life. And Mark Stavish has revealed that basically in the Rosicrucian works, which used to be a lot more dank, and also like our lodge, Johannes Kelbius, that name's familiar to all of Susquehanna. Our lodge, I'm not going to speak about this. I can't go to there because you know what I'm talking about. The restrictions show me that there's something not kosher. And so basically though, the Rosicrucian, like 1915, like Amorc even, like, and I know you mentioned like other, but so this specifically Amorc, I'm talking about Mark's reference on the Illuminati Confirmed podcast, the other Rosicrucian, I'm only speaking about the one with Harvey Spencer Lewis. This was much more potent and profound and powerful. And needless to say, it's the 7th, 8th, and 9th degrees Mark was actually talking about. And I'm actually, of course, at my 7th degree right now, taking that. And he talked about if people really knew what they were doing. I believe this was either in his Institute for Hermetic Studies Unfolding the Rose program, which is free, which I will also give notes for, or it was in his Egregores book or his Between the Gates book. Those are the only 2 books I have by him right now, but 2 makes a gate. So that's great for Nate the Great. The point is that before I lapse into some kind of poetic soliloquy here, too late. But basically, when you look at the 777, that is the celestial sanctum. And he says, if you sufficiently understood the power within that one practice, which is like the first thing they give you, you would already be pretty much like that's one of the highest adept, like as far as I understand what he's saying. So yeah. And I've started to actually like take sessions with him, which I mean, when you're ready, the teacher will appear. But if you're a student who needs to be reformed, my God, prepare to humble thyself, because your shit's going to get humbled. That's why I began the way I did today.
Yeah. No, and we had an interesting beginning here today, but we were talking on the phone earlier, and I was looking up at the sky as you were coincidentally talking about chemtrails and prana. So you just...
Oh, right.
Yeah, you just asked me to remind you of that. So what were your thoughts on that?
That's my meditative insight that I had, was that one of the main things, and that's why I mentioned spire and respiration and breathing, was that I had this influx of, and please take this for what you will, but like people talk about what are they doing up there? Why is that happening? And Grant Morrison's The Invisibles, there's like these deformed babies in a future timeline that are, it's like, all the chemicals they were spraying. And it's just like one of those things that seems to be like super, as the Pixies would say, hush, hush. They were just so quiet about it. But basically, because the Tool and Pixies are pretty much like, those two bands are like, so an Porcupine Tree for the T and the P. So point is that I think it's affecting our prana. Ultimately, that's one of the main assassination weapons, if you will. Is basically like your prana is your ability to have that connection, your chi, your life force, that which is subtle and actually is profoundly implicative of deeper levels. And Craig Williams was talking about just breathing into different areas is how you can access different planets. Because I have always known that, just like I think I broke down what the real moon landing spell was. I've always known that you don't go into space with rockets. That's absolute. I mean, take for what I say. Find out for your own gnosis, please. But that's not how space travel works. That's literally not real. I'm not saying if things are flat or not. I don't have that level of awareness. But I will say that you don't get into space that way. You get into space. They get into space like they do in Fringe or like they do in Stranger Things. That's how that works. Take it for what you will, but that's my understanding. So when the spray is happening, maybe it's partially blocking out with strontium, barium, thorium, or whatever it is, but it's blocking out ultimately our ability to have spire, to, like Spira, like the Final Fantasy, or like Pneuma, as Tool puts it. So like the first track is you don't want to breathe the light of the others, fear the light, fear the others for eternity. That's what the isolator of the heart chakra attack by keeping us separated, as people have observed, but 6 feet away. 6 feet under, you're the Walking Dead. See, instead of vertically, it's horizontally. So if what I'm saying rings true to you, again, I'm not the teacher. I'm the student. Mark Stavish is the teacher. Craig Williams is a guide. These are people that I deeply am grateful for, to the point of my Pisces rising suddenly getting very emotional. But I am very, very much inclined to say that if you want to learn more, guys, I need you. We don't have to do anything, but I wish for others to be meeting me at this level, on the level, so to speak. And the way to do that, especially if you're not like super down with follow your own path. But Mark Stavish's Institute for Hermetic Studies could certainly use your support, as well as you could use its support. So please, everyone who listens to this, if you would, I'm not going to say, this is how I'm going to say it. I don't want your money. I do. I want your money. But like, I want you, more importantly, to give some donation to Mark Stavish rather than me. I shouldn't say that I don't want your money, because everyone who's self-sufficient says, yes, I want your money. And it's like the Mofax thing. It's like almost something about that $100 bill. I'd almost rather have a new $100 bill than it's more beautiful than a woman, So like, that's my attitude. I'm not trying to like put any bad juju on my own earnings. I'm just simply trying to show you the order of operations for me, that I believe Mark's got it way more together than I do right now. Mark Stavish, specifically, just so many Marks, like Mark Divine, who wrote Unbeatable Mind. But basically, yeah, I would encourage everyone who listens to this, just send $1 to Mark's Institute for Hermetic Studies. And then also pay Mark and Nathan Lee as well. It's also the thing to do. But yes, there's something very self-sacrificial about the Pisces rising energy that's just like coming out in this. But yes, no, I do want your money. I don't want to be putting the wrong impression out there. But I want, in this one instance, to have you donate to Institute for Hermetic Studies, especially. Can you look at this just before do you see my shirt? Or maybe you can start, you can talk. I don't care. Do you see my shirt today?
Yeah, it's or the Sphinx. Okay.
Which is also my little deity head here. That's my name rearranged geometrically.
Really?
So recording now?
Yeah, we're recording.
Oh, good.
So you have the same geometrical value by name as Akhenaten?
Using Kolel, which is a particular
using Colel, which is a particular method, which literally you can swap one letter that's to the side of the other letter, like C and B. A vowel is not counting because vowels themselves, according to this gematria rules, which I didn't make up, and the vowel is a different substance altogether than the consonant. But Colel even sounds like a C or a K and an L. If you smooth over the L to the K from Lee to K, so it'd be like Nathan Key, which is kind of cool too. You get Akhenaten using Colel. And you get Leviathan using a similar way of doing that as well. But that's more of my own stretch on that, because you have to turn an N into a V, which I do by switching it upside down, and then, turning a U and a V isn't hard. It's the same Latin. V's are, the U's. But yes, Akhenaten and Leviathan, using those little tricks. And I in my way of looking at things, it's absolutely connected. It's relevant, or it is resonant. So that's an interesting thing, because Akhenaten and Leviathan have myriad implications in of their own. So anyway, I thought while we're doing the Akhenaten thing.
Yeah, I mean, Akhenaten historically brought monotheistic religion to a polytheistic Egypt, and he's also claimed by the ancient alien theorists to possibly be an alien. I mean, obviously, that's kind of a silly show to reference when we try to take a more serious approach. I don't rest many of my judgments on what Ancient Aliens says or doesn't say. But whenever you talk about Akhenaten, people often bring that up, the misshaped head. But what are your thoughts on Akhenaten, the actual historical figure?
Well, he was also Tutmos III. He is revered in certain sects of esoteric schools for not just the monotheistic association. That is in of itself something that I have on my path wondered, like, is monotheism, is this like do I resonate with that? Do I resonate more of a pagan archetype with the Pan and the nature spirits and, Hecate? At times I've dabbled in Hecate worship in the past, just, full disclosure, and, done different dream path workings with like Kefra and Morpheus and, other, as I mentioned, the Astaroth stuff before. And so for me, I'd say the jury is out. Like Odin, it's a hung jury, but it is something that I am not entirely sure of, but I do believe in as if there is an ultimate, that's my name for the original God. Like, it's a trinity, but I do kind of get more on with the Gnostic side of things these days. Mother Sophia, Yahushua as a great current, as someone who I find very much value in the idea of Yahushua. There's so much more that I still am learning, especially when I think of how Alex is Buddhist and Allison's Jewish, and I have a quarter Jewish, and they took the whole tip. But up, that's my joke. But yeah, I think that there's a lot more that are I'm tempted to quote Shakespeare, but
as far as just Akhenaten himself, I mean, my hair even kind of like looks like the headdress right now. I don't know. Like, I feel like there's more to be discovered there. I don't have an answer right now.
No worries. Just sort of off-topic tangent that we got into, jumping back into what you were saying before. You were giving a very nice endorsement of Mark Stavish's work, but maybe this is a good opportunity to go into a different direction, because you just mentioned Hecate, and I've heard her associated with Walter Bosley's work. I don't know how familiar you are with Walter Bosley, but he describes this mystery in San Bernardino, California, as relating to Hecate and her wheel in a very strange, almost sacrificial way, where a certain number of people were found mysteriously dead, and the theory that he posits is that maybe this was a secret group making sacrifices to Hecate, and there was even word that Aleister Crowley had made his way through the area at that same time. But what are your thoughts on Hecate? I know you are not participating in any human sacrifices, I can say that for sure.
No, it's a Wednesday. No.
So what was your experience like? You said it as if it was past tense, like it's something you don't do anymore. Is there a reason for that?
Well, when I was searching more when I was a couple of years ago. I think a lot of people kind of like had post 2012, like stuff started to kind of shift. And one of the things I did, because you mentioned New England when we were just chatting before, and we're right beneath where New Hampshire is, which is where Christopher Zach runs the Temple of Witchcraft. And since there are a few metaphysical stores in this area, neat. Yeah, I got a couple of his, but
he used to come and do talks at the local crystal shop near me.
Yep.
And I got this book like while he was there. I met him.
Yep. His temple, I've met him and a lot. I think Adam was back then one of his helpers, Virgo. So that, it's lighter energy, more Luciferian, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
that book I just showed it's titled Ascension Magic, and I bought it. I thought it was interesting. I never really practiced any of the techniques inside, but the part that I did really find fascinating was he has several different languages and all the different characters, so you can go and write, translate your own sort of spells if you want to write it in Enochian, or the other one that's strange is like the language of the wind or something like that. So he has these, and he also has a crop circle language. So I never put too much stock into them being like actual languages, but the Enoch one matches up with what I found in a book in magic, right? So yeah, he's always stood out as someone who I've been interested in. It's interesting that you brought him up. Alex Gray, Christopher Penczak. It's a sort of like world of New England magicians, and Alex Gray's more of a New Yorker, but still.
Yeah, I wouldn't put them in the same category or breath for my own self. That's just me.
I just mean like for our sake, the two of us have met two characters that have come up in our conversations. I'm just speaking to the synchronicity of our paths.
Osley is another one. I'm familiar with him, but I don't go in for his work. It's not to say I don't like it. It's just that how much time do you have? And you know what I mean? And, Penczak's like again, the Hecate thing was something I discovered through being there when they were doing their August rituals of Hecate.
Okay.
So that's something and it's because my friend Robbie from the Robin's Nest was there as one of their oracles. And there was a connection through the Robin's Nest in Bellingham, which is like you spoke about just a second ago, Penczak being at a crystal shop. That's where I basically got into that through. And I met Raven Cormasi at the Robin's Nest before he passed. I was able to give Raven Cormasi of the Italian witchcraft, hereditary witchcraft notability. I was able to give him a rose before he passed, which was a very interesting, it was an important rite of passage in a way. I was in different witchcraft schools. I was studying with what he calls himself Frater Xavier, a fellow Pisces rising. So, of mind and magic. And actually, he just communicated with me. He contacted me last evening, or this morning, in fact. So, interestingly enough. And Frater Xavier is someone people might be familiar with. But again, I would like to direct everyone to Mark Stavish. Not to anybody. You only have so much time. So that's what I would say for that. Tempus fugit, carpe diem. And so basically Mark Stavish, Marsha. So basically, right. And so, but yeah, it's people who have appeared and, they've each done their best or whatever they were trying to do to contribute. It'll be up to how many wheat and chaff, like what is left after the great turn, so to speak. And I think the most true will remain, which is why I try to align myself with the highest and most true, so to speak, just as language. But Enochians also don't dabble with that if you're not prepared. That's a really bad idea to put that into a book like that. In my humble estimate, as a beginner, that's not helping. That's causing people to jump into the volcano before they learned how to swim. Or something like that.
Yeah, as if we could swim in lava. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Exactly.
I hope I haven't written too much Enochian. I can't remember. But yeah, John D, he didn't seem like a savory character. So,
well, I don't know, but I just have to make a joke. John D's nuts. But basically, unhear that. Edward Kelly was his scryer. He was the less savory of the two, as the story goes. I'm grateful to Jason Louv's work. He's a brother Mason as well, or at least he was at the time, but I still believe he is, or I believe he still is. Both of those statements. But yeah, he wrote Empire of Angels. And just an interesting side note, and then I'll definitely bring us back into like the main seven. I was part of his angelic ritual that he did when his book Empire of Angels came out, he had a certain amount of people. He said, okay, we're going to be, for the launch of this book, for those of you who pre-ordered it, you will be available, or you will have available to you, and you will have accessible to you a ritual or a working that I will be doing for the launch of the book. And at the last minute, now I'm not telling how I used to preface this by saying, here's how to not do this, but he may have had his own internal reason. There may have been reasons for this, but only those who switched their name on his user site to all capital letters, angelic, Nathan Lee Miller Foster, for my example, or angelic, Jason Louv, whoever was there. If you didn't go in and switch that, he didn't send you the link. And there was tons talk about. So I want to get into this idea of disciples being discerning and how it's very Ahrimanic to have everyone be a Borg, to be the same, because there's no initiates aren't just everyone. Initiates are very few. And there is only a few. You're only going to have, you don't just, without going on a tangent, I'll just simply say, you have to be discerning. You have to have discrimination. Else nothing is real. If you don't have discernment or discrimination, as above, so below, then, go, I'm not telling people to do this, but go eat some poop or something. You're not going to eat poop. All right. Unless you're eating bugs. So basically you're not going to go eat anything or anyone. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. But anyways, and I meant that sexually, not cannibalistically, but now I see what I just said. So forgive me for being vulgar. But the point is that you're not going to just let anything in. You're not going to hey, this is a nice looking nail. Let me just enter into my hand with that. It's no. So you are discerning, and discernment's good. And it goes for the quality of people that you have in your life too. You don't want people mucking up your energy. And so there's a whole other thing to that. But basically, Craig Williams and Mark Stavish talking about discernment and discipleship is what that made me think of. But yes, as far as to bring it back to John Dee and, Newport, Rhode Island, the Newport Horologium with Jim Egan, of course, bring it back to New England, even the time itself, telling the time of day is a manner of discerning. It's I'm not going to call my friend at 3 a.m. because I am not an asshole. So it's discernment matters. Discipleship only can occur when one is discerning and discriminating. So, take all of what I just said and let's pretend I answered a question. The 7 topics.
It's good advice. And I think that's something that people should begin to realize when they listen to podcasts. You're definitely taking on another person's energy, and you should be discerning as to where that may be leading. I always felt that way about certain channeled material, right? Because we're supposed to trust that this person is channeling an entity that's all well and good, but how do we know that that entity isn't fooling the person that they're using to channel this message? How do we know that entity is even what it says it is? So usually, my suspicions are generally drawn when people make those kind of claims and whatnot, but also
right,
I try to let things come in and bounce off in a way that I allow myself to find meaning in what's happening and let that stick with me rather than the message itself. My interpretation, and that's where discernment comes in, right? You want to be able to
lesson. Everything is a lesson for the initiate. Everything is if pleasant or unpleasant, and some of the most important ones are unpleasant.
Right?
Again, I want to just, to your point, the people who don't do that often go through a thing where they flip it and they turn into cancer. See, I was cancel. It might as well call it cancer culture. It's cancel culture. But those people who participate in that, they notice how it's me too. I am a Borg too. I am a Borg too. Let's all be parasites. Basically those people they're not going to be here by 2040. That's just my ball. That's our New Englander kind of, that's that. Yeah, they're not going to make it. They're going somewhere else, and Godspeed on their journey, but Godspeed you whack emperors, but you're not going to be around for Silver Mount Zion, just to kind of throw nerdy music left and right. But yeah, no, that's what happens. If you're not discerning, you're going to be culled.
Yeah. And that's why people turn up to a show like this, I hope, my family thinks I'm crazy and so does theirs. And we're all in this together, figuring this out. And And yeah, I hope this show doesn't make people feel like they need to, stick around. This is sort of a get what you need out of it type of thing. I'm not desperately hoping that every single listener of my show listens forever. I hope that they get value out of it, share some value back my way if they're inclined, and do what they will. I'm not trying to be anyone's guru. I don't need followers. I barely maintain the Instagram that we have and for the show, and we're really not on any other social media platform aside from Twitter, which a nice little robot posts stuff for me on Twitter through my website.
I hate Twitter so much. I quit Twitter on 11/11 to make a point.
I'm one of the bots on Twitter. My account is basically a bot made by my podcasting host, and it just tells people when my podcast episodes come out. So yeah, I'm not in the position to become anyone's guru, but that's where some of these authors unfortunately get to, because maybe they start off with some really brilliant insight and they get carried away, and then they realize, oh, I'm the fountain of this stuff, and that's sort of an erroneous belief. I don't know how true that could ever be of one person, right?
You listen to Pixies at all? Because he says like the lyrics from Head Carrier, which are, it's actually, I forget the specific saint that is, but Charles Kittredge Thompson IV, aka Frank Black Francis, sings, you're the golden sun, but I could use a change. You're the gold, but I could, even something finds the end of its age. So it's called You Might As Well Be Gone. Or no, the song's Might As Well Be Gone. But yeah, and he also has one about Baal or Baalbek, and he's like, Baal's back. And anyway, great album, I think. So I'm going to throw 7 quick things at you just as a point, and
Please.
I have them all like here, so I'm not going to forget them. But Mark Stavish interviewing William Hodson, Martin Armstrong, 50% Depop by 2040 AI model of Socrates predicts. Now here's the one I wanted to get. This is what chugged my ran my memory. John Rappaport. He talks about how as a writer you have to be you have to just be who you are. And so I wrote this awesome poem the other night. It was very liberating. I'm not going to go into any more detail, but I'm a real boy. So anyways, dude, I could actually do really, if anyone needs I'm supposed to, Miguel, one of my mentors reminds me, he's like, dude, you should be telling people. I'm like, so I do astrology readings, and we'll kick this at the end of it too. But I also can do voiceover stuff.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say that because I know Miguel does that, and I was gonna comment at some point that you sound like the narrator from Adult Swim at some point, especially when you put who I'm talking about, the commercial narrator for Adult Swim. Like I think it's like Space Ghost or some kind of character like that.
His name is George Lowe, Captain Beefy. Yes, no, I love George Lowe. He likes folk art. And he lives in, I believe, Florida or maybe in Georgia. But yeah, Captain Beefy.
Yeah, you can definitely pull that off. All right, so get in touch with the occult fan, Nathan Lee, for all your voiceover and astrological needs.
Or your erotic voiceover, erotic astrological voiceover, erotic. All right, like Vulture, subculture.
But you were about to bring something up.
Oh, yeah?
You were, remember? You were going into...
Go ahead. I was
ahead.
doing that. So so number 3, three's the number. John Rappaport, that's JONRAPPOPORT, on viruses that don't exist is the name. Gigi Young I wanted to throw light on because Gigi, what up Aries? Gigi Young on Vanna von Braun and Elon Musk, Mars, I don't care. Musk, Mars, transhumanism. So is there life on Mars? The answer is not human, not non-transhuman. But also when they say Mars, that's Garuda, or the sphere of Garuda, which is across from Jupiter, which is Gadula. Leolamamena, something like that. Yeah, because you go from Keter to Malkut, and then so those were my very early learnings into magic. But anywho, Dark Journalist is number 5. So Mark Stavish, Martin Armstrong, John Rappaport, Gigi Young. We're putting together the Power Rangers, folks. And Dark Journalist on UFO/UAP. The rebranding, just like Jabs were the rebranding from Event 201 in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. If you can keep up with all this jazz. And to the listener, I'm saying this. You can pause, go back and listen.
but a dark journalist on UFOs, which are, it might even be like today or something, the 1952 UFO flap. That's around this time of year, but plus Atlantis. Jizz all over the lane, Maxwell, who just got put away for only 20. And, make sure those security cameras are working, darling, because you're going to need them. They'll get you even. Jizz Lane, they're going to get you even without the cameras, girl. It's what you get. Sorry, that's darker side. Hold on. Anywho, plus Atlantis. She used, speaking of New Hampshire, Ghislaine Maxwell used the name Janet Atlantis to rent her house. So to finish the list, Miguel Connor plus esoteric / Gnostic Theosophical Christianity, which is something that I've been kind of looking into, and Rudolf Steiner and knowledge of higher worlds and their attainment, the actual book itself, because the Alex Gray work on Fear Inoculum looks very much like one of the covers of Knowledge of the Higher Worlds and its attainment with the electric connection to the God force and stuff like that. Oh my God, do you have it?
Yeah, I have 2 copies of that book.
You can mail one to me because I don't have any. But I've been listening to the YouTube for like over a year now. It's taken me, it's really woosah.
You got to join my best friend book club on the Patreon if you want me to send you a book. I sent some out at the beginning of this week, and I'm sending some more packages out this week. So people, when this comes out, you might have a package on your doorstep. Go check.
As long as it doesn't say from Ted K. But up. Got jokes. I got jokes.
So we got Mark Stavish, Martin Armstrong, John Rappaport, Miguel Connor, Gigi Young, Atlantis. I know I'm missing a few, but Gigi Young, someone asked me if you could spell that because there's quite a few spellings. And when you type in Young, like Carl Jung, you get CG Young, which is Carl Gustav Jung. So at first I'm like, is he talking about CG Young?
Fair enough. And by the way, like when I talk about you, I'm like, you are so impressive for like the age that you're at. I'm very, very, it's edifying. It is edifying to see this. Like I am hopeful. Well, sir, I am hopeful because that's proof that we got this, as I like to say. We got this. So Mark Stavish, Martin Armstrong, John Rappaport, Gigi Young, that's Gigi, like the movie Young, like Young, Forever Young. And she's the one who's talking about Vanna von Braun, the paperclip Nazi that Disney brought over. Well, he worked with Walt Disney, that is to say, to fake the space. And by the way, that recent picture of like, Satan, NASA, whatever they're called, Nazi, whatever they're called, just about the deepest picture of space. I'm like, what? You couldn't zoom in like 1 millimeter further? Once you start to think like a little bit, and also if you look at that you look at the doodle, the do-oddle. I don't think it works for that one. But when you look at that, it's like, just turn it upside down because we're living in Wonderland world and you'll see what that is. It's pretty much the same tank that they put like Olivia or 11 in. And 7 and 11 are both not even though the word even is in both of them. Anywho, so let's go here. And by the way, 7 plus 11, which is the 2, is a 9. Okay, enough. So Mark Stavish, Martin Armstrong, John Rappaport, Gigiyoung on Vanna von Braun, and Elon, that guy, the cloning guy, and a dark journalist on UFO / Atlantis. That's what I would encourage people to look up. As well as the final 2 is just my man, our man, everyone's favorite Gnostic, Miguel Connor. And I was saying in connection to my personal path of becoming more interested in esoteric / Gnostic Theosophical Christianity, which after listening to Craig Williams, I'm like, I need to slow my roll because totally still beginning. And then I wanted to mention Rudolf Steiner on the knowledge of higher worlds and their attainment. There's so many literary allusions that Keenan uses. I believe that he's familiar with that book, as well as that book about Huey Long, who was a politician that was a Democratic version of Donald Trump, who was a Democrat for most of his life anyways. And there was between the Diape and the Death Shroud, which is why no amount of stench could cover up because he's not talking about any particular person. He's talking about the political structure. But if I'm getting if people are like, what the fuck's going on now? Don't worry, I'm pulling it back. Don't forget though, of course, the same author used the Nathaniel Hawthorne reference in Unable to Forgive Your Scarlet Letterman. And actually, because Keenan is the multifaceted genius that he is, when the book Scarlet Letter was released, Pluto was on his sun. So you have to there's like all the things. And so the last one
as if that weren't the last one already. No, it was Rudolf Steiner. And he's a very important figure, and he's a Pisces sun himself. But I found out about Steiner when I was, at least my most vivid, speaking of the 23, the Vignette trace, I found out about Steiner when I was 23 in a really weird situation that I am not going to share right now.
Oh, cliffhanger. Okay. No big deal there. That's fine. We'll just leave people teased. But yeah, I don't,
enough.
I don't have that book at hand. It's on my shelf somewhere. I'm not going to waste time looking for it. But I do have one of Rudolf Steiner's books, The Origins of Natural Science, in my hands. For people who don't know, he was an Austrian-born man from 1861 to 1925 he lived. And in his wake, he's left an impact on a lot of different subjects, from education, philosophy, religion, economics, agriculture, architecture, drama. But one facet that people may know him for is the Waldorf schools, which are sort of interesting. I've heard from past guests who have children in Waldorf schools that they're not what they're cracked up to be. They're sort of just a vessel of what they were meant to be, now sort of co-opted by the jabbers and the lefties, but that sort of thing. But who knows? I mean, it can't speak for every single one.
Craig Williams made an interesting note about like the OTOs and even the Satanists and stuff like that. And they're all like, everyone's got to be equal. And I'm like, yeah, how's that initiation not working for you?
Because how are you implying that you can't be an equal if you're not initiated?
Well, there's a level of everything has a shadow side of things, but there's also a level like where this can mean one thing here, but it means a different thing here, depending on the dimension and whatnot. But it's also like, not to cop out. No, what I was saying directly is that you would expect that people who are like Satanists to like not be so sensitive about all the bad malarkey.
Right.
So whatever, right? Like, what do I know? Like, I'm on my path. I'm going to take my path. My path is not going to feed you, but if I can help you, I am happy to.
Right. So, Dark Journalist.
Yes.
Let's get into Dark Journalist a little bit.
Yes.
What is his thoughts on UFOs? Because I have heard his name before, not just from you, but from other guests recommending Dark Journalist. Is he someone I can get in touch with? Is he so anonymous that we wouldn't have an interview with him?
I don't think you're going to interview him just off the bat. Let me say that. But if you're interested in his works, which is equally valuable, then if you take by meaning, just his website, darkjournalist.com, sign up for his newsletter as the censorship demons advance. I would encourage people to sign up for his newsletter to find out through what he calls like his pipeline, to find out when his shows are going to be or what the guests are coming out. And yeah, no, I have a lot of love and respect for Dan Wise, as I refer to him, for Daniel, as everyone else would. But to me, he's Dan Wise because I'm Mr. Frodo. Someone gave me that because we were on the chat and it's like, oh, I'm born on Hobbit Day. It's like Mr. Frodo. And I'm like, he's Dan Wise. The Egregores started there. And also shout out to Big Sis, who is Olivia, her little bro. That's again a one-on-one thing. It's not like that again, it's discriminating, but it's there. And I love them both. In my Mars on my midheaven, some parts of me go straight to like, I would protect them no matter what kind of attitude. So like Legion, stay away from my friends. You will not even touch them. If you try, you will fail in a way that you have not imagined, and it will put the fear of God into you. Anyways, that's me being protective and still early on the path, but I love my friends. I love Dark Journalist, Olivia and Dark Journalist. I love X-Fam. We call each other X-Fam. And of course, for GG Young, it's GG Fam or G-Force, depending, but GG Fam. But yeah, basically, he talks a lot about UFOs and documents the F out of it. Anything he says will have documentation. There are points where I digress in agreeing when I see a picture of like Unumanuma or Umau Mau Mama Umau Mau Mama Uma. Yes. When I see that, you got to know what they're doing. And when I see that stuff, I'm like, how doth thou not seeth the CGI? But that's okay, because that's just me. And I find his work more relevant and useful than just like the few times that it's like a 3% versus 97 kind of thing. And yeah, he's the real deal on Atlantis, the hot zone. He cracked that. And he has apparently a big show coming up. And by the way, Chris Mellon
And those jokers like Tom DeLonge and stuff like that over at the whole like Blue Chicken operation. You'll know what I'm talking about if you know what I'm talking about. But people putting out disinfo. Oh, it's time to listen to the CIA. Yeah, no. He had his cousin come on, one of the Mellon family, moneyed families. And he had like his cousin come on and talk about, what his cousin Chris Mellon was doing, which is all bombastic BS. And basically he'll talk about Atlantis and the hot zone, which is the hot zone brings a whole new level of what was the Cuban Missile Crisis really about. And yeah, dude, no, this is awesome. And John Lennon, I'm in King Mob Studios here. This is King Mob. This is King Mob Studios. I have a picture of John Lennon, who is in the first episode of The Invisibles, Dead Beatles, or it's one of the first. Yeah, it's the first one. And so John Lennon actually bought land down in the hot zone because they believed that back then the land was going to rise from Atlantis. But this is, again, tied back just now with Musk doing his weird cloning things. They're not really going to space. Great way to move the ball in the cup thing to make you give them the money for the false things. And then they'll blow up a couple of rockets and that rocket will take your attention and bam, pow, wow, fireworks. I got space, mom. Anyways, so the point is that, yeah, I know, right? You get me going and the comedian comes out. But the idea is that John Lennon was buying land down there in Atlantis, in the Atlantic. And anyways, they believe that the land was going to be rising. But this brings us back to jizz all over the face, Maxwell. Sorry, the comedian. I got to calm down now. Got to relax myself here.
No, you're bringing up stuff that I haven't heard of before, so I did a quick look. I know I've seen and I've used this soundbite in the podcast. John Lennon talking about a UFO he's seeing. He was standing outside and someone was interviewing him. Seemed like a friend, not like press or anything. But they got it on camera back then, which is cool, and it's on YouTube. You can go and look it up. But King Mob was an English radical group based in London during the late 1960s, early 1970s. Are you referencing this, Nathan Lee?
So it's referenced through the work of Grant Morrison. I run the Invisibles reading group.
Okay. You've told me that. I think we've talked about that. Yeah.
So King Mob's the main character, and if I shave my head, I'd look like him. But Grant Morrison is actually, I wear lipstick from time to time. It's part of I'm not a deviant. That is to say, I am straight, actually. I make jokes where I'm like, I'm straight as a circle, but I'm actually, like, not that it's anyone's business, but I'm more normal in that sense. What do they call it? Cis? Is it Genesis? Because they can actually reproduce? What? What? All right, just I'm getting feisty, but ride the tiger. So the point is that Ebola, Jesus, interesting stuff. So truly interesting. But what I'm saying is that King Mob and Grant Morrison's actually coming out with his like other version of himself soon or something. He like released a picture with lipstick that's actually almost the same shade that I'm wearing. But basically he's going to come out as Ludo or something like that. Or I don't know. He's like, ooh, coming soon. And I'm like, so I mean, like, I take the Invisibles for what it's, I mean, like, he had people like masturbate to charge it to Satan. Like, that's one of the things that like is not really widely talked about. So like, there's all this like stuff that like, I'm like, all right, I'm doing this now, but as I extricate or as I become more discerning. And one thing that we didn't even bring up was like literally that distant from here CERN thing, which Jesus, I mean, it could be altering the processional wobble of the medium itself, like Dr. Farrell has noted. Another one that I find a lot of value in, but I've just kind of gotten away from. But I love Doc, and I'm glad that he's well now. Yeah, I can hear my love in my voice, so that's good. No, man, I love Doc, and I love our geezers. But the point is that King Mob himself was a character that was named after that group, when they even do go back and use that similar, Yeah, Mark is showing the same book that I have right over there, the Thrice Great Hermetica and the Janus Age. And yes, when I interviewed Doc on my show, it was back in February of 2020, and we talked about some of the Nazi UFO stuff. So I'm happy because don't forget, in Stranger Things 4, I don't know if we mentioned this because I was not, so that hadn't been released. But I realized, first of all, the character Steve Harrington and Jonathan, who both love Nancy, that's Jonathan Harrington, aka my ancestor. Like, the Duffer Brothers are born 7 months and 7 days before my birth, like to the day. And in Stranger Things, I was just going somewhere with the Nina, which is like Nina Sharp
in William Bell, aka Nazi Bell, and Nina, which is, please, dear listener, dear gentle, very attractive listener, very good looking. You're a good looking listener, very good looking listener. N-A. So when you flip the vowels, like we alluded to earlier, you can replace and mix and match vowels. And so you move the N. So it's the Nina project, which is like dressed up to be like the Nazi Bell. And please just not to worry about things, but like, if you see the thing, like if a character lifts the Nazi bell up in the air and then brings it back down again, she doesn't crumple it up or destroy it. She just lifts it up and brings it back down again. That's what the original Nazi bell could do. But the point is that Nina, or why am I repeating this Nina project thing so much? Dear listener, visualize or get a pen and paper, and pencil and paper, preferably pencil. And what you'll do is you'll write N-I-N-A, and then you'll see that you can flip those two vowels without replacing them even. So N-A-N-I. And then why don't you just go and hyperdimensionally shift that N. N-A-Z-I. It's right there.
Boom.
That is what... Boom shakalaka.
Damn. Well, I want to take it back to Stranger Things real quick, and then I think we should wrap up because we've already been going for almost 2 hours now.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, I don't want to take up all your day. I know you didn't have...
I do have singing lessons I need to get to right after this. So.
Yeah. So, but real quick, I noticed on the Go Ogle Earth when I was playing around with the map, and I highly recommend people go to google.earth and turn on the longitude and latitude settings so you can see where the 40th parallel goes and all these things.
Oh, we didn't even talk about that.
Well, but here's the thing. You just mentioned Stranger Things, and CERN is on the same line of latitude as Astoria, Oregon, where The Goonies takes place. And we all know that Stranger Things has this very pronounced 80s vibe. It's just like The Goonies, a group of kids sort of, outside of the auspices of their parents doing adventures and things like that.
And Stephen King's Talisman, too. And Stephen King's born the day before I...
Which is...
the Talisman.
Which is why I wanted to bring this up, because I had a feeling you would also have some other connections to add. Because I just noticed that, and I've never watched Stranger Things, but I have seen The Goonies several times.
Rocky Road. I love it. Dude, talk about MK Ultra like trauma programming, like fucking chunking his hand in the blender.
Right.
Yeah. And One Eye Willie, come on now.
Yeah. Well, and also this gang of people that live in this sort of abandoned sort of section of town, and they have this underground connection under their house, So yeah.
Tunnels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Angels and Airwaves did the whole video of tunnels where Tom DeLonge like literally flashes the square and compasses. That's a weaponization of something that's I don't want to. Okay. But yeah, no, Tom DeLonge is not to be trusted. Like you can take initiation, but not for every man does initiation stick. So that's why you hear those horrible stories about like a Mason who wasn't a good person or something. I'm like, that's not how. I don't like to hear that, but it's not a blame game of like, oh well, what about cardinal law in Boston and all the children and this, that, the other thing. Corruption is corruption, and to have a core rupt is to have a ruptured core, and that is to say your heart is broken. So basically, it's core for French for heart. But basically, see, I should just start doing hip hop and just like drop knowledge like that. But anyways, yeah, I can talk fast enough. The point is that when you look at Stranger Things, and I love that the Goonies parallel, that's crazy. I actually ordered a copy of Stephen King's The Talisman for $6.06, ultimately $6.06. And it was from a town that was literally north by like a county of where Stranger Things is supposed to happen. It like really was like one of those. So like in The Invisibles, by the way, they talk about like the life of a magician is connected by these amazing threads of coincidence. And imagine the life of an old magician, like someone who's like really old and like their whole life is one long series of coincidences because of the energy, the prana, all auras are vibrating with you. You're an aura putting it out, and then the world has an aura, which is also probably being poisoned by the chem spray. But then everything has an aura, from your computer to your pets to everything has an aura. So like the Pisces rising also, we got the feels. But like that's just something that I want to put in there. There's actually a lot of stuff that I'm just like not getting to.
Well, no, and that's fine. That's fine, Nathan Lee. I hope to have you back on, and we'll get into more of this stuff. But yeah, the point on the go ahead.
I just want to finish the Stranger Things point because they're talking about what's actually, I do believe part of what's happening in our world right now is that, and again, I'm early on the path, so please don't, this isn't something, don't run with this until it works for you. But like, I believe that show is like one of the most powerful. It's like a Twin Peaks type show, which has this, again, the same kind of idea of the possession, and the other realms are basically becoming much more tangibly fluid and active is what a lot of people think. And this show had in season 3, the Hadron Collider type thing where they were breaking open the veil. And now they have like the Nazi Bell technology in the 4th one. And what UFOs might be is just stuff breaking over from that subconscious, because ultimately it's all in, like everything's like happening inside, which is a big like what the hell. And
that's why we see all this, to bring it back to what you just said about the energy bodies. That's why we see these orbs as well. You know, we see these orbs. People say that orbs are sort of like interchangeable, almost like a preliminary. As it's breaking through this dimension, you see it as an orb, and then when it goes back, you see it as an orb again. Who knows? Maybe there's something to that. But on the other point about ley lines, I mean, that's the aura of our Earth, right? So it's
natural. Eric Clapton song, right? Ley lines. Sorry, couldn't help it.
I didn't know that. Well, I'm gonna have to.
It's Layla. It's Layla. I was making a bad joke.
I have heard that song. That song.
And we're just gonna occult the fuck up. Well, Clapton's still a real man, as is Van Morrison, for what real man means. But I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. And all I'm saying is there are many connections right into the fabric of this earth, you know, and from our bodies, and that's why they're trying to spray aluminum, barium, strontium, and who knows what else on us in the sky, eliminating that sweet ass prana, as our friend Ralph Smart, well, my friend Ralph Smart, I've never interviewed him, but I do like his videos, but that sweet ass prana that we all need to just breathe in, you know, take a deep breath. And I mean, if you live in a city, maybe you got to go and drive a little bit to take a nice deep breath. But it is what it is, you know. Maybe you need to change up where you're living, right? I mean, I know for a fact you spend a lot of time in the woods. I try to go out as much as possible because that's where these insights happen. You were meditating.
About an hour a day, to be honest with you. I'm a very, I mean, one of my last names is Forest, basically Forest, you know?
Yeah.
When you look about the stuff that's being, you just made me like realize like, this is like where people are like, you know, oh, they said this, or oh, this, and downward spiral it goes. I believe that something that's getting sprayed is to make you more connected to this. I'm pointing at a smartphone, but you could say any device, any portal into that really dark mirror.
Right.
The internet, the dark mirror of the internets.
Nathan Lee Miller Foster. Damn, brother. Another fantastic, excellent conversation. All over the place, but that's okay. That's why we're making these diagrams. So I'm going to share the diagrams with people so that way they won't hit me up and say, oh, could you ask him to spell this out? And because we did get a bunch of people who were very curious about a lot of the things you said. And
that's good though.
Yeah, it's a great sign. I mean, normally we don't get that much of a response from an episode about the subject itself. Usually it's just like, great episode, but you clearly stoked the curiosity of the audience in a different way, in a unique way. So
I'm here to serve. I really am. No, I want to say to everyone listening, like, you guys, you're all individually capable. You have the power within you. Okay. Like, you are powerful. Let nothing ever take that away from you. In jiu-jitsu, it's getting someone off of their center. That's what evil tries to do. But you have the power. Cultivate yourself. Be discerning. If this message is getting to you, you got a chance. You got a choice. I want you to live your highest best possible. That's why I'm resonating with what's happening, because I really am putting that out there. So it's working. It's good to hear that.
And you've just inspired the evolution of my tagline, because I normally say enjoy the moment wherever you are in the now to finish this, but now I think I need to change it to immerse yourself wherever you are in the now. The intro and outro backtracking for this podcast was provided by today's guest, Nathan Lee Miller Foster. All right, and that is another episode with Nathan Lee Miller Foster. It's a pleasure to have him back on the show. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Last episode, we got some mixed reviews. Some people really loved them, some people really didn't. And that's fine. We're not going to have guests on the show that everybody agrees with, and we're not going to have unanimously loved guests every episode, and that's fine. This is the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast, so please don't judge. I appreciate everyone so much for all the support. I'm glad that the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast has grown to be your favorite podcast. Make sure you recommend it to a friend. Give us a positive 5-star review on iTunes. Tell us what you think. That helps the show grow. And of course, a one-time donation or a subscription to our Patreon or our Rockfin. You get all sorts of bonus content on our Patreon, audio episodes, video episodes. And if you just want the video episodes, go over to Rockfin. We got them all on Rockfin, and for one low monthly fee, you get my podcast and dozens others. Dozens more, I should say. So Rockfin's a pretty awesome deal. Patreon, of course, if you want to support us directly, and one-time donation if you want to help me keep doing what I'm doing at the pace that I'm doing it. I've been putting out at least 3 episodes a week for the past few months, and it's been going great. We've seen the show grow immensely, and I can't help but say it every outro. Thank you so much, and please, value for value, folks. If you find value in the show, send some value back my way. I'm not ashamed of asking, and I can care less what the haters think, because if you enjoy this podcast, I can guarantee that there is a little bit of money or change that you could spare to put it towards this podcast so I could spend more time each week creating audio magic that you learn from and enjoy wherever you are in your now. That's all for today, folks. Please support Nathan Lee Miller Foster. His podcast is called The Six of Swords. He's also got a Bandcamp. You can find his Bandcamp by searching Nathan Lee and his Deep State. The links are all in the description. That's all. Have a great moment wherever you are in the now.
Man, I think I'm fucking peeking right now. Wait, I'm peeking through the curtain. Cells out of service, can't reach me on the circuit. I'm peeking through the curtain. Nothing is for certain, but I feel it like a purpose. Wait, I'm peeking through the curtain. Hardly feeling like a person, but the vibes are perfect. I'm peeking through the curtain. Nothing is for certain, but I feel it like a purpose. Wait, my third eye's open and my chakras flowing. All 7 channels in my spirit's floating. Knowledge feeling deeper than the ocean. It's the eightfold path in the sacred lotus. I'm peeking, flipping through Akashic records. My ego's decomposing like a leopard. I'm Edgar Casey on some levitation, so it's zero hesitation as I jump into the spaceship. I'm weary from faking like a earthling, while skyfish dip and dive above the earth circling. I'm spiraling, sacred geometry, studying my old selves like it's anthropology. Honestly, feeling like life's a comedy, as big a game as a paper-run economy. I've been playing safe, but safest for the weak of heart. Wait, I'm peeking, tearing everything apart. Wait, I'm peeking through the curtain. Cells out of service, can't reach me on the circuit. I'm peeking through the curtain. Nothing is for certain, but I feel it like a purpose. Wait, I'm peeking through the curtain. Hardly feeling like a person, but the vibes are perfect. I'm peeking through the curtain. Nothing is for certain, but I feel it like a purpose. Wait, I'm beta testing old theta frequencies. I lay to rest the ego and the frequent themes that keep me seeing life inside a box. Small minds kick rocks, Pandora, let's talk.
I might need a suture for this rift in space. I might stay and see how Lucifer's fruit tastes. I'm hungry for knowledge and hungry for infinite. And every time I'm peeking, I can see it for an instant. I'm peeking through the curtain at the crowd. Sheep's in their seats and the wolves on the prowl. Zeitgeist, spirit form, walking through the aisles. Consumerism living in their vacant smiles. Now I'm peeking through the curtain at the sky. I ain't even gotta try, gaining wisdom on the fly. I'm touching base with things I can't explain. Gods without names on a different plane. Wait, I'm peeking through the curtain. Cells out of service can't reach me on the circuit. I'm peeking through the curtain. Nothing is for certain, but I feel it like a purpose. Wait, I'm peeking through the curtain. Hardly feeling like a person, but the vibes are perfect. I'm peeking through the curtain. Nothing is for certain, but I feel it like a purpose. Wait, I'm peeking through the curtain. Cells out of service can't reach me on the circuit. I'm peeking through the curtain. Nothing is for certain, but I feel it like a purpose. Wait, I'm peeking through the curtain. Hardly feeling like a person, but the vibes are perfect. I'm peeking through the curtain. Nothing is for certain, but I feel it like a purpose. Wait.